There's a paradox destroying millions of disciplined people right now. People who set morning alarms, write elaborate schedules, buy productivity planners, download habit trackers. People who plan everything perfectly, yet 3 weeks later they're back where they started, ashamed, defeated, wondering what's wrong with them. It's not a lack of effort. It's that you're building routines the way a child builds sand castles. Beautiful structures that the first wave of chaos destroys completely. Perhaps you've tried building the perfect morning routine 17 different times. Perhaps you've read every productivity book, followed every guru's system, color-coded your calendar until it looked like a rainbow exploded. And perhaps right now you're living with the quiet shame of being someone who can't even maintain a simple routine. In ancient Greece, Aristotle developed a concept called Hexis, the practiced state of being. It's the understanding that excellence isn't an act but a habit, that we are what we repeatedly do. But here's what modern productivity culture doesn't tell you about Aristotle's wisdom. He wasn't talking about routines that required constant motivation. He was talking about identity transformation so complete that your routine becomes as automatic as breathing. Today you'll discover exactly how to build a routine that doesn't require willpower, doesn't collapse when life gets chaotic, and makes other people look at you and think, that's not normal. But first, you need to understand why every routine you've built has failed. Subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and comment below. What routine have you failed to maintain, and how many times have you tried to restart it? Be honest. Your answer matters. Chapter 1. The Man Who Couldn't Keep a Promise to Himself. Marcus was 34 years old, senior financial analyst at a growing firm, married to Rachel, father to a 6-year-old daughter named Sophie. From the outside, his life looked organized. Clean apartment, consistent income, respectable career. But Marcus was dying inside because of something no one else could see. He couldn't keep a single promise to himself for longer than 3 weeks. Every Sunday night, he'd sit down with his journal and write his perfect routine. 5:30 a.m., wake up. 5:45 a.m. workout. 6:30 a.m. shower. 7 a.m. breakfast with Sophie. 7:45 a.m. leave for work. He'd even set it as his phone wallpaper. Week 1 was perfect. He'd wake before his alarm, energy surging, everything clicking into place. Week 2. Small negotiations started. Maybe 5:45 a.m. instead of 5:30 a.m. The workout shortened from 45 minutes to 20. Week 3. The alarm went off and his hand hit snooze before his conscious mind even engaged. By week 4, he was back to waking up at 7:15 a.m., rushing through his shower, grabbing breakfast from a drive-thru, arriving at work already exhausted. The shame was suffocating. Every failed routine was evidence that he lacked discipline, evidence that he was weak. Evidence that other people possessed some internal mechanism he'd been born without. He'd watch videos of people with perfect morning routines, entrepreneurs waking at 4 a.m., athletes training before sunrise. And he'd think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do what they do? Rachel noticed. She didn't say anything for months, but Marcus saw it in her eyes. That flicker of disappointment when his alarm went off and he rolled over. That resigned expression when he came home exhausted, having accomplished nothing he'd promised himself he would do. One Tuesday night after Sophie went to bed, Rachel sat across from him at the kitchen table. No phone, no TV, just silence. Marcus's stomach tightened. That kind of silence meant serious words were coming. I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was sad, which somehow felt worse. You're not failing because you're lazy. You're failing because you're trying to change your entire life every Monday morning. You wake up on Sunday night and decide to become a completely different person by dawn. And when you can't sustain being that person, you think you've failed. But Marcus, you haven't failed at discipline. You failed at understanding how transformation actually works. Her words landed like a physical blow, because they were true. Every routine he'd built was an attempt to become someone else. Someone who naturally woke at 5:30 a.m. Someone who loved working out. Someone who didn't need 3 cups of coffee to function. He wasn't building a routine. He was trying to perform an elaborate act of being someone he wasn't. And the moment the performance became exhausting, the routine collapsed. That night, Rachel handed him a card. My friend's husband went through something similar. He found this person who helped him. I think you should call. The card read, Dr. Helena Stavros, behavioral psychologist, specializing in sustainable habit architecture. Marcus looked at the card and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not hope exactly, but curiosity. What if the problem wasn't him? What if the problem was how he was trying to build change? Chapter 2. The psychologist who spoke like a philosopher, Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. Marcus sat in a minimalist office. No diplomas on the wall, no leather couch, no clipboard. Just a simple desk, 2 chairs, and a small olive tree in a terracotta pot. Dr. Stavros was in her late 50s, gray hair tied back, wearing simple clothes that somehow communicated both authority and ease. She didn't start with questions about his childhood or ask him to lie down. She just looked at him in complete silence for what felt like an eternity. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Marcus felt the urge to fill the silence with explanations, justifications, apologies. Finally, she spoke. You've tried building routines before. It wasn't a question. Many times, Marcus admitted. How many? I stopped counting after 20. She nodded slowly. And each time you believed the problem was your discipline. Marcus felt exposed. Isn't it? No, she said flatly. Your discipline is fine. Your understanding of how human behavior actually works is catastrophically wrong. She stood up and walked to the small olive tree. This tree is 30 years old. Do you know how it got this shape? Marcus shook his head. Every single day for 30 years, someone made microscopic adjustments. A small pruning here, a slight shift in position there. Never dramatic, never violent, just consistent, patient, intelligent touch. If someone had tried to force this tree into this exact shape in 1 month, it would have died. Your routines are dying for the same reason. Dr. Stavros sat back down. Let me explain what's happening in your brain when you try to build a new routine. Are you familiar with the basal ganglia? Marcus shook his head. It's the part of your brain responsible for automatic behaviors. When you first learn to drive, your prefrontal cortex is fully engaged. Every decision requires conscious thought. Turn left, check the mirror, press the brake. After months of repetition, the basal ganglia takes over. You can drive while having a conversation, listening to music, thinking about work. The behavior becomes automatic. She leaned forward. Here's what you don't understand. The basal ganglia needs roughly 66 days of consistent repetition before it encodes a new behavior as automatic. But you're trying to install 5 new behaviors simultaneously and expecting them all to feel effortless by week 2. Your brain is being asked to run conscious decision-making software for 5 different actions every single morning. By week 3, you're experiencing decision fatigue so severe that your prefrontal cortex literally starts shutting down higher reasoning to conserve energy. Marcus felt something click. So I'm not weak. I'm just trying to do too much too fast? Exactly. And worse, you're doing it in a way that Aristotle warned against 2,400 years ago. Marcus blinked. Aristotle? Dr. Stavros smiled. You think ancient philosophy and modern neuroscience are different? They're saying the exact same thing in different languages. Aristotle understood something your productivity gurus don't. He called it Hexis, translated as practice, disposition, or habitual state. Excellence, he said, is not an act but a habit. But he didn't mean habit the way you think of it. She pulled out a sheet of paper and drew 3 circles. Aristotle identified 3 types of life pursuit, and only one leads to what he called eudaimonia, human flourishing. Most people chase pleasure, immediate gratification, quick results. Others chase honor, external validation, what other people think. But the life that actually produces lasting fulfillment is the life of arete, virtue expressed through repeated action. Your problem is that you're building routines for external results, weight loss, productivity, impressing your wife. But routines built on external outcomes collapse the moment the outcome doesn't arrive fast enough. Marcus was absorbing every word. So what do I do instead? Dr. Stavros locked eyes with him. You stop trying to build a routine. You start trying to build an identity. And you do it using the exact system Aristotle described, combined with what modern neuroscience has confirmed. I'm going to teach you 3 principles. If you apply them correctly, you won't need motivation in 90 days. The routine will perpetuate itself. Chapter 3. The 3 Pillars of Unbreakable Routine. Dr. Stavros wrote 3 Greek words on paper. First principle, mikron, the power of microscopic action. Aristotle understood that virtue is developed through small, repeated actions, not dramatic transformations. A neuroscience study from University College London confirmed that habits requiring less cognitive load automate faster. Your mistake is starting with 45-minute workouts. Your brain sees that as a threat, a massive disruption to your existing energy management system. She slid the paper toward him. For the next 30 days, your morning workout is exactly 2 push-ups. That's it, 2 push-ups. Your brain can't negotiate with 2 push-ups. It's so small that resistance doesn't even activate. But here's the secret. Once you're on the floor doing 2, you'll often do more. But even if you only do 2, you've maintained the sequence. The basal ganglia doesn't care about intensity. It cares about consistency. Marcus felt resistance rising. But 2 push-ups won't do anything. Correct, Dr. Stavros said. 2 push-ups won't build muscle, but 2 push-ups every single day for 30 days will build the identity of someone who works out every morning. And identity is the only foundation strong enough to support a lifetime routine. Aristotle called this becoming through doing. You don't act virtuous because you are virtuous. You become virtuous by acting virtuously repeatedly until the action and the identity merge. Second principle, scopos, the practice of process worship over outcome worship. Aristotle distinguished between activities that are complete in themselves and activities done for external ends. True eudaimonia comes from actions valued for their own sake, not for what they produce. Your routines collapse because you're measuring outcomes, weight lost, tasks completed, hours worked. When outcomes don't materialize fast enough, motivation evaporates. She handed him a small journal. For 90 days, you will never measure outcomes. You will only measure action. Not did I lose weight, but did I move my body? Not was I productive, but did I show up? This rewires your dopamine system. Right now, your brain only releases dopamine when you see results. We're training it to release dopamine for the act itself. Once that happens, the routine becomes self-reinforcing because the action is the reward. Third principle, statheros chronos, the anchoring power of non-negotiable time. Aristotle organized his entire philosophical school around fixed daily rhythms. Morning walks, afternoon lectures, evening contemplation. The time was sacred, non-negotiable, immovable. Modern neuroscience calls this implementation intention. When you remove time as a variable, you remove a decision point. Every decision point is an opportunity for your old patterns to reassert control. Dr. Stavros looked at Marcus intensely. Choose one time. Not the time that's optimal. Not the time that sounds impressive. The time that's most protected from chaos. For you, that might be 6 a.m. After Sophie leaves for school, it might be 9 p.m. It doesn't matter. What matters is that once chosen, it becomes law. Not a suggestion, not a goal. Law. The routine happens at that time regardless of how you feel, regardless of circumstances, regardless of results. Marcus wrote everything down. Micron, microscopic action. Scopos, process over outcome. Statharos chronos, non-negotiable time. It sounded simple, almost too simple. Dr. Stavros saw his doubt. You think this sounds too easy to work, but Aristotle spent decades teaching this system, and it produced some of history's greatest minds. The difficulty isn't understanding the system. The difficulty is having the humility to start microscopically small and the patience to trust the process when your ego screams for bigger, faster, more dramatic action. She handed him a card with 3 tasks written on it. 30-day protocol. Every morning at 6 a.m. 2 push-ups, 2 minutes of sitting in silence. Read 1 page of any book. That's it. No more, no less. Your only job is sequence consistency. Can you commit to that? Marcus looked at the card. 2 push-ups, 2 minutes, 1 page. His ego hated how small it was, but something deeper in him recognized truth. Yes, I'll do it. Dr. Stavros nodded. Then you've already begun. Chapter 4. The first 30 days. Death of the old self. Day 1 felt ridiculous. Marcus set his alarm for 6 a.m. It went off. He got out of bed. Did 2 push-ups on his bedroom floor. Sat in silence for 2 minutes while his mind screamed about emails and meetings. Then read 1 page of a philosophy book Rachel had given him years ago that he'd never opened. The entire sequence took 6 minutes. His ego was furious. This is stupid. This won't change anything. You're wasting time. But he'd made a commitment, not to results, but to sequence. Day 3, the first real test. He'd slept poorly. Sophie had a nightmare at 2 a.m. His body felt like cement. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. and every cell in his body screamed to stay in bed. But Dr. Stavros's words echoed. The basal ganglia doesn't care about intensity, it cares about consistency. He dragged himself out of bed. 2 push-ups felt like lifting boulders. 2 minutes of silence felt like torture. 1 page took 3 attempts to read because his eyes kept closing. But he did it. The sequence continued. Day 7. Something strange happened. He woke up at 5:58 a.m. 2 minutes before his alarm. His body had started anticipating the sequence. The 2 push-ups no longer felt absurd. They felt like a small promise he was keeping to himself. The 2 minutes of silence. His mind still raced, but there were 5-second windows where thoughts slowed. 1 page became 2 pages because he was actually interested in what he was reading. He wasn't doing more because he was supposed to. He was doing more because resistance was dissolving. Day 14. Marcus was sitting at breakfast with Rachel and Sophie. Rachel looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You've done it every day," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. She'd been watching. "I have," Marcus said. For the first time in years, saying those words didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a fact. Sophie looked up from her cereal. "Done what?" "Daddy's been keeping a promise to himself," Rachel said, her eyes not leaving Marcus. "Every single day." Sophie smiled. "That's good, Daddy. Promises are important." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. His 6-year-old daughter had just articulated what he'd been unable to understand for decades. Promises to yourself matter. Day 21. Marcus arrived at Dr. Stavros' office for his follow-up session. She looked at him and immediately said, "Your body language is different. Your shoulders are lower. You're not performing with confidence. You're inhabiting it. Tell me what happened." Marcus pulled out his journal. "I've done it every day. And something weird is happening. I'm not just doing 2 push-ups anymore. Some days it's 10, some days it's 20. But even on the days it's only 2, I don't feel like I failed. Because the promise was the sequence, not the intensity, and I'm keeping the promise." Dr. Stavros nodded. "You've discovered what Aristotle called entelechai, the process of becoming your completed form. You're not trying to be disciplined. You're becoming someone for whom this routine is simply what you do. The action and the identity are merging. This is Hexis." She leaned forward. "Now I'm going to tell you something that will test everything. You're about to hit the 30-day mark. Your brain will tell you that you've succeeded, that you can relax now, that you've proven your discipline. This is the most dangerous moment, because success isn't reaching 30 days. Success is making 30 days irrelevant. Success is when you stop counting. Here's your next 30 days. Same sequence, same time, but now you add one microscopic element. After your push-ups in silence, before you read, you write 1 sentence in this journal, just 1. Not about outcomes, about identity. Complete this sentence. Today, I am someone who... That's it. 1 sentence about who you're becoming, not what you're achieving. This trains your brain to measure identity transformation instead of external results. Aristotle understood that we don't pursue virtue to gain something external. We pursue virtue because virtuous action is eudaimonia itself. Marcus took the new journal. He felt something he'd never felt before about a routine. Not excited, excitement fades. Not determined. Determination requires energy. He felt inevitability, like this was simply what happened at 6:00 a.m. now. The negotiation had ended. The identity was forming. Day 42. Marcus woke at 5:53 a.m., 7 minutes before his alarm. His body knew. He did 12 push-ups, sat for 5 minutes in silence where his mind was quiet for 30 consecutive seconds. Read 4 pages and wrote in his journal, "Today I am someone who keeps promises to himself even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching." He closed the journal and realized with absolute clarity he was no longer building a routine. The routine was building him.